Today's lesson is Module 4, Lesson 6, Order of Operations. There's quite a bit of notes today. We're going to do multiple problems together so that you have some in your notebook, and we will also work through multiple examples together here in today's lesson in the student book. So first we're going to talk about the word order. When we talk about order, we're going to talk about steps to follow. Operation. Operation is add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Remember, when working with order of operations, always work left to right in the following order. Step 1, parentheses. Always do what's in parentheses or brackets first. So your parentheses could look like this, and sometimes there's parentheses inside of parentheses. Next, you will do exponents. Remember that little subscript is the exponent, which tells you how many times to repeat the base using multiplication. For step 3, this is often where people become confused. Remember, you can divide or multiply, or it might be multiply and then divide. But what you need to remember is work left to right. So the division could come first or the multiplication could come first. And then step 4 is going to be subtract or add or subtract. Again, work left to right. Remember to rewrite the expression after each completed step. And we're going to work through a few of those together. But I cannot stress enough this step 3 and 4. Often students follow the old PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and so they did parentheses, exponents, multiply, then divide. Multiply doesn't always come first. It's whatever comes first on the left. So we're going to do a few examples together, and then we're going to do some work out of the student book. So your first example, I want you to write down the expression 3 plus 4 times, or I'm sorry, minus 2 times 3. As you work through this, I want you to underline each step that you're working on, and then I want you to put your answer in a circle, and then we're going to draw a triangle around the whole thing. So the first thing we're going to do is underline each step. So according to order of operations, I have to do the parentheses first. So 2 times 3 is 6. Then I'm going to rewrite everything that I haven't used yet. Now my next step is exponents. I don't have any exponents in this expression of 3 plus 4 minus 6. The next steps would be multiply or divide. Again, we don't have any multiplication or division left in this expression. So now I'm going to do add or subtract, working left to right. So I start over at the left. I can see I have 3 plus 4, so that's my next step, which gives me 7, and then I copy down the rest of the expression that I haven't used. And then finally, 7 minus 6 is my last step. I underline it. My answer is 1. I circle my answer, but then I put a triangle around the whole thing. The reason why I have you do this is because I want you to see that each time your expression should get smaller and smaller. So remember to circle answer. And finally, draw a triangle around your work. We're going to do another example together. In this example, I want you to do 3 plus 4 to the second power minus 6. And in this one, remember we have to do parentheses exponents. So in my parentheses, I can see that I have 4 to the second power. So that's where I have to start. I have to start here. So I'm going to underline this. 4 to the second power, remember, is the same as saying 4 times 4, which is 16. So I have 16 minus 6 in parentheses. And then I have my plus 3 that I haven't used yet. So now I'm going to continue with my parentheses. 16 minus 6, which is 10, plus 3. And then finally, 3 plus 10, which gives me 13. Circle my answer, and then draw a triangle around all of my work. Remember, you can pause and rewind this video as much as you need to. We're going to do another example together. In this example, I want you to do 2 plus 3 plus 2 in parentheses to the second power minus 12 divided by 3. Remember, I start with parentheses. So this time my exponent's on the outside of my parentheses, so I'm just going to do my operation that's in the parentheses, which is 6. I keep my exponent. I keep everything else from my expression. Now my second step is to solve exponents. For my exponent, that is 6 times 6, which gives me 36. So I have 2 plus 36 minus 12 divided by 3. My next step is to multiply or divide. I can see here that I have a division, so 12 divided by 3 is 4. I keep my 36 and my plus 2. I don't have any multiplication, so now I go to add, subtract, and I work left to right. So 2 plus 36 is 38, minus 4 is what I have left, and then finally 38 minus 4, which is 34. I get my final answer. Draw everything inside a triangle. We're going to do another one together. In this example, I want you to write down 5 times 28 divided by 7 minus 4 to the second power. Remember, according to order of operations, I do what's in the parentheses first. So 28 divided by 7 is 4. and then I copy down the rest of my expression. Next, I do exponents, which is 4 times 4, which gives me 16. So now my expression is 5 times 4 minus 16. Next step is to multiply. So 5 times 4 is 20 minus 16. And finally 20 minus 16, which is 4. We're going to do one more together. In this example, we're going to do 15 minus 6 to the second power minus 34 divided by 2. And this one I have parentheses and an exponent here, but I need to solve what's in my parentheses first. So 15 minus 6 is where I'm going to start, which is 9. I keep my exponent and I keep my 34 divided by 2. So now I have to solve this 9 to the second power, which is 9 times 9, which is 81, minus 34 divided by 2. Now, according to my steps, I'm supposed to multiply or divide. I can see that divide is my next step. So 34 divided by 2 is 17. So now I have 81 minus 17, and 81 minus 17 is 64. We're going to go on and do some work in the book together, and then we will have some more examples throughout the lesson. So go ahead and put your notebook to the side. Make sure it's someplace close so that you have something to reference when we're going over the lesson, so that you have an idea of the steps for following order of operations. This starts right off with example number 1. And in example number 1, it says, what operations are evaluated first? So when we do order of operations, what is the first thing we do? Remember, the first thing you do is parentheses. And the very last thing we always do, if you check your order, when we went over order of operations, the very first thing we did was parentheses, and the very last thing we do is subtract or add. So now they just want you to go to try some of these on your own. With a partner, I want you to go ahead and pause the video and then work on 1 through 3 together, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, so let's take a look at what you should have done for number 1. In number 1, you should have multiplied first and gotten 14. So 4 plus 14, and then the end result is 18. You should have circled it and drawn a triangle around the whole thing. For the next one, you should have started with 36 divided by 3, which gives you 12, and 12 times 4, which gives you 48. And then the last one, you should have started with 5 times 2, which gives you 10, and then 20 minus 10 is 10. Let's go on to example number 2. In example number 2, in this expression here, it wants to know what is the very first thing that you will evaluate in this expression. Since this expression doesn't have parentheses, we will start with the exponent. And then after exponent, remember, we multiply and divide, but since divide comes first, we will divide, and the one that's always last is add and subtract. So it wants us to figure out the final answer. I'm just going to write this here just so that it's easier for me. Remember, we start with our exponent first, so that's 9 times 9, which gives me 81, and then I'm going to copy down the rest. So 4 plus 81 divided by 3 times 2 minus 2. My next step is going to be to divide. I'm going to divide 81 divided by 3, which gives me 27. I keep my plus 4. I keep my times 2. I keep my minus 2. And my next step is to multiply. So 27 times 2, which gives me 54. I keep my plus 4 and I keep my minus 2. My next step, I'm working left to right, is to add. So 54 plus 4 is 58. I keep my minus 2. And finally, 58 minus 2 is 56. I draw my triangle around the whole thing. My final answer is 56. I want you to do exercise 4 and 5 with a partner. So work through it all and make sure you come back and check your answers. So go ahead and pause. Okay, in number 4, you should have started with your exponent, which is 5 times 5, which gives you 25. I copied down the rest of my expressions, so you should have 90 minus 25 times 3. Your next step is to multiply 25 times 3, which gives you 75. Copy down your 90 minus 75, and your final result is 15. On to number 5, you should have started with the exponents, and that is 4 times 4 times 4, which is 16 times 4, which is 64, plus 2 times 8. Then you should go on to your multiplication, which is 2 times 8, so 64 plus 16, which gives you 80. Now we're going to go on in the lesson to example number 3. In example number 3, it says, consider a family 4 that goes to a soccer game. The tickets are $5 each. The mom also buys a soft drink for $2. How would you write this expression? So I'm going to have to come up with an expression on my own using operations and numbers from the problem that they gave me, and I'm going to work left to right. So 4 people are buying tickets that are $5. So 4 groups of 5, and then the mom adds on a soft drink for $2. And then it says, how much will this outing cost? Well, I'll have to work this out using order of operations. So I start with 4 times 5, which gives me 20, plus 2, which gives me 22. This outing will cost $22. For the next part, it says, consider a different scenario. The same family goes to the game as before, but each family member wants to buy a drink. How would you write this expression? So I know that it's a family of 4, and each person is going to spend $5 on a ticket and $2 on a drink. So I would write that as 4 times, remember parentheses can be multiplication, or you can put in that multiplication symbol. It's completely up to you. 5 plus 2. My next question says, why would you add the 5 and 2 first? And our answer is because it's in parentheses. How much will the outing cost? So this time I'm going to start with 5 plus 2, which is 7, and 7 times 4, which is 28. So the outing will cost $28. My next question says, how many groups are there? Remember, I read this as 4 groups of 5 plus 2. So there are 4 groups. What does each group comprise? What is or comprise of? Each group is 5 plus 2. That is a ticket and a drink. I want you to try number 6 and 7 with a partner, so make sure you pause the video, work it out, and then come back and check your answers. For number 6, you should have started with 9 to the second power, which is the same as 9 times 9, which gives me 81. I continue to copy down everything I haven't used, so the subtract 4 and the plus 2. So now my expression reads 2 plus 81 minus 4 in parentheses. Since 81 minus 4 is still in parentheses, I have to do that first. So 81 minus 4 is 77. I still have my plus 2, which I haven't used yet. So 2 plus 77 is 79. In my next one, I can see that there are parentheses inside parentheses. So I start with the inner part first. So 3 plus 4, which gives me 7. And then I copy everything else that was in the parentheses down and then continue to bring down my times 2. Next, I'm going to divide because division comes before addition. So 14 divided by 7, which is 2. I continue to copy my 13 plus 5, which is in my parentheses, times 2. My next step is to add because it comes before the subtraction, working left to right. So 13 plus 5 is 18. Minus 2 is still in parentheses and times 2. Since I have 18 subtract 2 still in parentheses, I have to go ahead and do that operation first, which results in 16. And finally, 16 times 2, which gives me 32. Let's go ahead on to example number 4. In example number 4, they want us to look at this expression, 2 times parentheses 3 plus 4 to the second power. It says, which will we evaluate first within the parentheses? So inside the parentheses, what are we going to do first? Well, we have addition and we have exponents. According to order of operations, I do my exponents first. So we would do 4 to the second power. And 4 to the second power is the same as saying 4 times 4, which is 16. So now I have 2 times 3 plus 16. So I do 3 plus 16, which is 19, times 2, which is 38. Let's go on to the next part. It says, what do you think will happen when the exponent in the expression is on the outside of the parentheses? So now, if the exponent is on the outside of the parentheses, we're not going to start with exponents. We're going to start with parentheses. Will the answer be the same? We're going to come back and answer that. So what should we evaluate first? The first thing we should evaluate is the parentheses. So inside my parentheses, I have 3 plus 4, which is 7. To the second power times 2. So what happens differently here than in our last example? In the last example, we started with exponents. And this time we're going to start with addition. This time we start with addition in the parentheses. So now what is our next step? Now our next step is going to be our exponents. So which is 7 times 7, which is 49. And then we finally do 2 times 49, which is 98. What do you notice about the two answers? My two answers, they are different. The next question says, what was different in the two expressions? In the first expression, the exponent was inside the parentheses. And in the second expression, the exponent was outside the parentheses. What conclusions can you draw about evaluating expressions with parentheses and exponents? You need to always start with what is inside the parentheses. So now if I go back to that question, will the answers be the same? My answer is no. No, the answers won't be the same. I want you to go ahead and do numbers 8 and 9 with a partner. So pause your video and then come back and check your answers. Okay, let's go ahead and check number 8. In number 8, you can see that you have exponents inside your parentheses, so you need to start with that first. So 3 to the second power is the same as 3 times 3, which gives you 9. So in my parentheses now I have 12 minus 9. Outside my parentheses I'm adding 7. So I have to work inside my parentheses, 12 minus 9, which gives me 3. Add on my 7, my end result is 10. For number 9, this time they gave me the same numbers, but they moved my exponent to the outside of my parentheses. So I'm going to start inside my parentheses first with 12 minus 3, which gives me 9. My next step is to solve my 9 squared, which is 9 times 9, which gives me 81. I'm going to continue to add in my 7, so 7 plus 81 is 88. For today's assignment, we are going to continue working with following order of operations. So for the problem set, I have you solving problems 1, 2, and 3, and I went ahead and gave you a place to solve each of those. So I need you to go ahead and copy the problems over. So for number 1, you will copy that expression. Number 2, make sure that you copy it using the parentheses, and you can leave out the dollar signs when you recopy it. And then finally, number 3, and then turn it over on the back. And then again, want you to solve each one of these, or evaluate each one of these expressions down to the simplest form. If you have any questions, feel free to watch this video as often as you need to, or come see me.